Covering Dunkirk, Fredonia, and all of northern Chautauqua County, this is WCVF 88.9 FM, The Voice.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Blue Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Volz, a sophomore here at SUNY Fredonia. Well, for anybody who was listening, we missed you last week. We had a couple of technical issues that I ran into, so we were not able to have Big Blue last week. But I'm back this week, right before fall break, too. So anybody on campus is listening is probably itching and eager to get through the rest of the day so that we can go home and at least have a couple of days break to ourselves. First, I want to talk about Fredonia sports. Got a lot to get to today as there's some news coming out. Actually, I just had one flash across my screen. There was a trade in the NFL that just happened like 2 minutes ago that they just reported. So I'll make sure to get to that. Some other news going on around the NFL world. Of course, I want to recap. I want to talk about the Bills-Dolphins game on Sunday. I was at the game, and I want to be able to share my experience with what was, in all honesty, one of the loudest crowds that most of the people in that stadium have probably ever heard. Definitely one of the loudest. I said it's the loudest sports atmosphere I've ever been a part of. It's the most incredible sports atmosphere I've ever been a part of. I honestly think that the only atmosphere that I've been in that was more just insane than the Bills-Dolphins game on Sunday was probably when I went to the Eras Tour in June. But either way, it was an amazing atmosphere, but we'll get to that later. Major League Baseball postseason play started yesterday as well, so I'll definitely make sure that I get to that. And, of course, I make my picks for the NFL games upcoming. The Bills, I hope you have your coffee ready on Sunday because kickoff between the Bills and Jaguars in London at 9:30 in the morning. It's the first time Buffalo's played in London in a handful of years, and they played Jacksonville in that game too. That was I know E.J. Manuel was the starting quarterback. I cannot think off the top of my head if it was 2013 or 2014. I do not remember which year it was. I think it was 2013 because EJ was only in for the first 4 games. And then he fell apart and they lost to the Texans after he threw an 80-yard pick six to J.J. Watt, who should have won MVP that year, but that's really another discussion. But yeah, anyways, let's talk about Fredonia sports. Get to that first. Overall, the Blue Devils sports teams, between the difference from this year to last year for like virtually every team is almost night and day. I mean, no, they're not necessarily lighting the world on fire, but they're up there in the SUNYAC. And last year, for most of these teams, that really wasn't the case. You know, the women's soccer team last year, if you remember their season a year ago, they won 2 of their first 3 games, and then they didn't win a game the rest of the season. This year, they have already, it's October 4th, they still have like a handful of games left. They've already more than doubled their win total from last year. They're sitting at 5-4-1 right now. This team has been excellent at home. This Fredonia women's soccer team, they've been incredible at home. 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 tie. The only loss was last week. They lost 2-0, or not last week, 2 weeks ago. They lost to Geneseo. They lost, and that was a 2-0 game. You know, their other home games, they've had other home games where they've just absolutely, more or less, dominated. I mean, they won the Blue Devil Classic. You know, they had that 7-2 win over Buff State last Wednesday. They're on the road tonight. They're on the road for 4 straight. They're at Oswego. That game's getting started at 4 o'clock today. They're also at Plattsburgh on Saturday. And then next week, which I'll get to next week when I'm on the show, but they're at Brockport next Wednesday and then at Oneonta next Saturday. They'll be home again on Tuesday, October 17th, 6 p.m. against Penn State Barron. And then they got the next 4 games are on the road. And then they got 2 home games, the 17th, like I said, against Penn State Barron. And then October 21st, that's a Saturday at 1 p.m. against New Paltz. And then that's it for the regular season. I mean, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but my gosh, it just feels like the fall sports season and really the fall semester as a whole is just kind of flying by right now. I mean, I think a lot of people have been really busy and maybe a lot of people are kind of burned out right now too. But I think that it's gone by so quickly. I mean, it's October 4th. You know, people are doing like midterms, and this is just a little side tangent, but anybody who knows me knows that I'm no stranger to going on the occasional or frequent side tangent. You know, I think a lot of people right now, it's like You're taking midterms. We're getting ready to go home for fall break. And it's like, wait a minute, didn't we just get here? Like, wasn't it? Like, I swear it was just like August 25th yesterday. Like, I was just talking about how the Bills were getting ready to start their season, and now they're 4 games in, getting ready for week 5. Like, what is going on here? Anyways, the men's soccer team, that's another team that, they struggled last year. Their final record was, I believe it was 4-9-3. I'll double check. Yeah, I was right. Boom. How about that? Yeah, 4-9-3. They ended up missing the SUNYAC playoffs by 1 point. So that's if one loss was a tie, or if one tie was a win, they would have been in. And much like the Sabres last year, but we'll get to the Sabres later. This is a team, they're off to a 5-3-3 start. Both soccer teams more than likely are going to be in play for the SUNYAC championships. I don't know that they'll necessarily win the conference championship, but they'll make the conference playoffs. And this men's soccer team, they've also been really good at home. I mean, they haven't had the wins that the women's soccer team has had. Their home record is 2-1-2. 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 ties. But they've still been very good. They have not played a single neutral site game this year, which is kind of interesting. Most teams usually play a couple in the preseason. The men's soccer team did not. They are actually home tonight at 6 p.m. They're taking on Oswego. I will be on the call for that game. I will be doing the play-by-play for the live stream that you can find on FredoniaBlueDevils.com. It'll be just me, so it's like listening to this show. You get to hear me flap my jaw and ramble on for an entire 90-minute game. They're also in action on Saturday at 1 p.m. against Plattsburgh at home. I will not be on the call for that one because I will be home. Next week, they're at home against Brockport, 7 p.m. And then Saturday, October 14th, at home against Oneonta for a SUNYAC matchup. They've got, same with the women's team, they got 6 games left. 6. I did count that right. Needed to make sure I was doing my math right. They had lost a couple in a row last week. They lost their first 3 SUNYAC matches by a combined final score of 12-1. Now they got beat 3-1 at Geneseo. They lost 7-0 to Cortland, and they lost 2-0 to Buff State. They got their first conference win on Saturday. They beat Potsdam 2-1 on the road. So they're looking for their first home conference win and looking to make it back-to-back wins when they host Oswego tonight. The women's tennis team looking to rebound. They've lost 4 in a row. Their record's sitting at 1-7. But again, even just to get that first win off their back, which they did back on September 11th over Houghton, even just to get that first win, that's kind of like one obstacle cleared out of the way, you know what I mean? And they had some close ones. Like they played Brockport on Saturday. They ended up losing 6-3. They had a couple of singles pairs take home victories. They had one doubles pair take home the win as well. But they've played some competitive, like they've had some close matches that ultimately just don't go their way. So they will be at Oneonta tomorrow, and according to the website, the start time for that has not been set. So, and the website also says that the location is the Binghamton Tennis Center. So they are at Oneonta tomorrow against New Paltz on Friday, and then Plattsburgh on Saturday. So 3 straight days with matches before they finish their season next Wednesday at Penn State Barron at 6 p.m. Now on to, let's see, what other team do we have left? Volleyball, yes. I lose track of what teams I've covered, which teams I haven't. My gosh. So the women's volleyball team, of course, won on Saturday. They took home a 3-1 win over Oneonta before losing 3-1, or after losing 3-1 to New Paltz on Friday. Their record currently sitting at 3-12. They're in action tonight. They're heading up I-90 and the Scajaquada. That's, by the way, for anybody who is from Buffalo, another little side tangent, because I haven't been on the air in 2 weeks and I've just been looking to go on tangent after tangent. I like every time I drive to Buffalo and I drive up like if you're driving up the 190, you're going up towards like Niagara Falls or whatever, and you drive by the Scajaquada. The Scajaquada is like my favorite Western New York word. Like Western New York has so many awesome words, like so many words that are just so fun to say. And Scajaquada is like number 1 for me on that list. I don't love driving on the Scajaquada. Don't get me wrong. I've driven to Buff State before, and I don't like driving 30 miles an hour on the highway, just to point that out there. But I don't know. I don't know. I love this Kajakwada. And I missed being on the air. I did. I missed it. It was like, this is, Big Blue is where I come to like get my sports talk. Like I have to get it all out of my system. And I kind of do that on News at Noon too. Like I have to get it all out of my system so that I'm not like endlessly talking about sports. Like when I'm like sitting around the station or like in the leader office. By the way, new issue of the Leader printed yesterday. It's 48 pages long. It looks awesome. The Carl Hall Memorial Invitational is on the front and back cover. There are some great articles. It's awesome. Make sure to pick one up. Quick play there. But no, I come on the air so that I can talk about sports. That's pretty much it. Anyways, the women's volleyball team is playing Buff State today. 6 o'clock. That's at Buff State. Then they play a couple times next week. They're home again. Not till Friday, October 20th, when they play Cortland at 6 p.m. They've still got a little while to go in their season. Their SUNYAC playoffs don't start for about another month. Swimming and diving is getting set to start, though. Swim and dive in hockey are odd because it's like they're not exactly winter sports because they kind of start when fall sports are still going on. And then they're like spring sports are starting when they're still going. So it's interesting. Their schedule is a little bit odd. But the swim and dive team, the men's and women's teams, have their first meet this Saturday. They are at Pitt Bradford at 3 p.m. Pitt Bradford only about an hour and a half southeast of here. It's for anybody who might not be familiar with the area. Bradford is like just south of the New York-Pennsylvania border. It's right near Pitt Bradford, obviously. It's right near, for any like local schools, if anybody knows St. Bonaventure University. It's like maybe about like 15 minutes south, maybe 20 minutes south of there. So they'll be at Pitt Bradford this Saturday. Then they got a week off, and their first home meet is scheduled for Saturday, October 21st. They will host William Smith College. The start time for that meet has not been set yet. As for the men's and women's cross-country teams, they are in action on Saturday. They will be traveling to Houghton for a meet there. The men's team runs at 11, and the men's team running at 11 a.m. in that meet. And the women's team will run before them. The women's team will run at 10. And the men's team will run at 11. Last weekend, for anybody who might have seen it around campus, they had the Carl Hall Memorial Invitational. And I mentioned this on the show, but so Carl Hall was a 2017 Fredonia graduate and a team captain of the women's cross-country team. She was tragically killed in 2020 when she was out for a run in her hometown near it was either Bergen or Bergen. I never know how to pronounce it. I know it's somewhere between Batavia and Rochester. But anyways, she was out for a run in her hometown in 2020 when she was tragically hit by a car and killed at the age of 25. So what the cross-country teams have been doing the last couple of years is they would start the season, it'd be like Labor Day weekend, that Saturday, with maybe 2 or 3 teams at most coming to Fredonia and having a small little invitational. But this year they expanded that. They had a bunch of different teams. I think they had 7 or 8 different teams that all came to compete for this invitational. I talked to Nick Abdo, who's the assistant coach of the cross-country team, a couple of weeks ago, and he said that it is the biggest invitational that Fredonia has hosted in quite a while. He said something like 15 years. He wasn't sure of the exact number, but he said, yeah, it was something like 15 years, the biggest invitational they've hosted. It was a great ceremony. The women's team ended up finishing 5th out of 6 teams. The men's team finished 4th out of 7. And what I thought was really cool, the assistant coach for Oneonta, whose name I am blanking on right now, but there was an article about it in the Leader. You should read the Leader. She ran at Fredonia. She was a teammate of Cara Hall's. And so during the women's race, the Oneonta runners all had Run for Cara painted on the side of their legs, which is I think is just such a special show of unity and support. I think that's so cool when other teams do that. It's like when, I mean, it's not quite the same, but what it reminds me of is, remember last year in that last week of the NFL season after Damar Hamlin went down, when all of the other teams around the league were kind of like coming together, whether it would be before the game, at halftime, after the game, and they would have, if each player had a player wearing uniform number 3, they would kind of, kneel at midfield or whatever. And I just think that's a really cool show of support, right? I mean, I think in the world of sports, it's so easy to get caught up in the divisiveness in that us versus them mentality that I think sometimes we lose the fact that all of us playing sports, we're all still human beings, and there are more important things to life than a game, or than a game or a match or a meet or what have you. So I thought that was a really, really neat show of support from Oneonta, and I thought all of the teams that came to run just did an awesome job of, showing their respect to Cara. And, I thought head coach Tom Wilson also did a fantastic job in putting the event together. And their hope is to not only keep it going, but expand on it and make it bigger for the future. And I really think they can. I think that this invitational was a huge success, and I think that is only going to improve everything moving forward for this program and really for this team. So, yeah, that was just kind of, what I wanted to talk about the Cara Hall Invitational. I got to get the break because I've rambled on for about 18 minutes straight. Going to play a little music. Then I'll be back. Let's talk about the Major League Baseball playoffs because those started yesterday. And thanks for tuning in today on Big Blue Sports Podcast here on 88.9, the campus and community voice of Fredonia. Be back in a few minutes.
Someone to kiss, someone to kick you. There's nothing that you couldn't slip through. Or at least that's the impression I get. Cause you're smooth and you're wet and she's not aware yet. But she's yours and she'll be saying use me. Show me the jacuzzi. I imagine that it's there on a plate. Your rendezvous rate means that you'll never be frightened to make them wait for a while. I doubt it's your style not to get what you set out to acquire. The eyes are on fire. You are the unforecasted storm. You're elected and commanding. You hear the other story standing with your
forwarded to an automatic voice message system. At the tone, please record your message.
Hey, I'm just calling to let you know that you're listening to WCVF 88.9 The Voice.
And welcome back to Big Blue Sports Podcast. So before I get into talking about the baseball playoffs that started yesterday, I said at the top of the show that there was a couple of news that I wanted to get to, and I'll get to that now. First of all, ESPN just reported about a half hour ago that the NCAA is going to be shrinking the window for athletes to enter the transfer portal, which is going to impact all sports. And the transfer portal is something that, it doesn't really necessarily affect a school like Fredonia quite as much because we're D3, but your smaller Division I schools, everything with NIL deals in the transfer portal is brutal because you can't get players to stick around anymore because they're going to want to flock to the big schools because the big schools can pay them more money. There's more opportunities for them to make money and they can market themselves better and all this. I don't know. It seems like parity in college sports, especially football, a little bit in basketball too, really kind of seems to be going away, which I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about that. I don't know because I worry that we're going to come to a day where you're just not really going to see upsets anymore because anybody who is capable of pulling that off is just going to go to the big schools because they can make more money there. But I don't know. Hopefully we don't run into that. Anyways, the other amount of news that I wanted to get to, this news broke literally right as I was coming onto the show, that the Chargers have traded defensive back J.C. Jackson to the New England Patriots, according to Ian Rappaport, NFL insider. The sides will be swapping late-round picks in 2025. J.C. Jackson, of course, was a former Patriot, and he was really good in his time there. He signed a big contract with the Chargers in the offseason. Everything's been a mess with J.C. Jackson and the Chargers. Nothing short of an absolute mess. And so I guess we'll see how that goes with J.C. Jackson going back to the Patriots. It could be very good for them. I mean, this New England team has had an incredible defense this year. And I've said the Patriots' defense is keeping them in games. I mean, it's really honestly as simple as that. Their offense is not very good. Their defense is terrific. Their defense is what's allowing them to be so close. That's what allowed them to have the opportunity to come back against the Eagles and keep it close in week one, or almost beat the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. So, we'll see how that goes with J.C. Jackson back in New England, back under Bill Belichick. Anyways, Major League Baseball, those playoffs started yesterday. We had a few good games. So the playoff bracket, how it's structured, is in the AL, you've got the Baltimore Orioles, winners of the AL East, and the Houston Astros, the American League West champions, as the top two teams, so they will get wild card round byes. And then the AL Central champion, the Minnesota Twins, because someone had to win that division. The Twins are the 3 seed. The top wild card team, the Tampa Bay Rays. The Texas Rangers got the 5 seed, and the Toronto Blue Jays the 6. In the NL, the Atlanta Braves, champions of the National League East, and the NL West champion Los Angeles Dodgers got the first round byes. Then the Milwaukee Brewers winning the National League Central. The Philadelphia Phillies as the top wild card seed, the number 4. The Miami Marlins as the number 5. And the Arizona Diamondbacks as number 6. So the wild card matchups, of course, as I said, in the AL, Baltimore and Houston getting wild card round byes. The Twins taking on the Blue Jays, Rays against the Rangers. In the NL, Braves and Dodgers get the first round byes. Brewers against the Diamondbacks, Phillies against the Marlins. All 4 of those series started yesterday. The Rangers going into Tampa, or should I say St. Petersburg, and beating the Rays 4-0 in Game 1 of that series. Jordan Montgomery taking the win, with Tyler Glasnow taking the loss for the Tampa Bay Rays. Up in Minnesota, the Minnesota Twins beating the Toronto Blue Jays 3-1. Pablo Lopez gets the win for Minnesota. Kevin Gausman takes the loss, and Yohan Duran gets the save for the Twins. In the National League, the Diamondbacks heading into Milwaukee to beat the Brewers 6-3. Joe Mantiply gets the win for the Diamondbacks. Corbin Burns takes the loss for the Brewers, and Paul Sewell gets the save for Arizona. Then in the other game, the Phillies beating the Miami Marlins 4-1. Zach Wheeler gets the win. Jesus Luzardo taking home the loss. And Craig Kimbrell gets the save for Philadelphia. So game 2 of those series is today. The first game getting started at 3:08. That is the Rangers and Rays down in St. Pete. That game on ABC. Nathan Eovaldi, the right-hander, will get the start for the Rangers, while Zach Eflin will go for the Rays. 4:38 in Minnesota. The Minnesota Twins hosting the Toronto Blue Jays. Jose Barrios gets the start for Toronto. Sonny Gray for Minnesota. That game will be on ESPN. Then at 7:08 tonight in Milwaukee, Zach Gallen and the Arizona Diamondbacks will look to jump ahead 2-0 as they face Freddie Peralta and the Brewers. That game will be on ESPN2. And then at 8:08 tonight in Philadelphia, Braxton Garrett and the Miami Marlins taking on Aaron Nola and the Philadelphia Phillies. Should be an interesting postseason. There's a few teams that are in it this year that are not typically or have not been for a while. You know, you got the Baltimore Orioles. This organization has been through so much over the last several years. I mean, how many times in the late 2010s and early 2020s did the Orioles finish in last place in the entire National League? There's a bunch, you know, and to see Baltimore be able to rebound, they've got a lot of young talent and even more on the way. To see them getting the number 1 seed in the American League, I think there's a lot of people who are honestly rooting for Baltimore because just they've been through so much. And I think that seeing a team like that having the success that they had this year is just, that's a sign that, hey, sometimes being patient as a sports fan pays off. Because yes, and I can tell you this as a lifelong Buffalo sports fan, losing is not fun. I've seen a lot of it. It's not fun. But when your team starts winning, there's nothing that compares to that. I mean, when you've been sitting around waiting for a champion for years and you finally get a winning team, that is an indescribable feeling. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday about what I was experiencing when the Bandits won the NLL Cup back in June. And that was really the first time that I had seen my favorite sports team win a championship. You know, I had never seen that before. So even though it was, you know, lacrosse is a much smaller sport, and I haven't been following the Bandits maybe as long or as closely as I've followed the Bills or the Sabres, or even I'm also a Cardinals fan for baseball. But my gosh, there's nothing to describe that feeling. I mean, it hits you. It hits you in the heart, let me tell you. You know, but it's something to be said for being a fan and waiting for so long for a champion, and then you finally get one. That feeling it's indescribable. It's unbelievable to feel that way. And definitely I think there's a lot of people that are rooting for the Orioles. I think if Baltimore finds a way to go on a deep playoff run, that would just be so special for them. I don't think as many people are rooting for Houston. Something tells me that not as many people are rooting for the Houston Astros. I mean, they won the World Series last year, and there's a lot of bitterness over that across Major League Baseball. But anyways, I'm going to get the break, and then when I come back, I want to talk about my experience at the Bills-Dolphins game on Sunday because it was a lot of fun, and I would love to share that with all of you. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of Big Blue Sports Podcast here on 88.9 FM, the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
it's inevitable. Whispers unfold. Protagonist unknown. If every quarrel's traceable, is this communication? I'm fluent in subtlety. I can diffuse most anything, but you make my head explode. The
Tune in to News at Noon on Mondays and Wednesdays at noon, with an additional news segment on High Noon Friday, every Friday at noon. News at Noon gives you your local, campus, and international updates, as well as sports and weather. Be sure to tune in.
And you can tune into News at Noon later today. I'll be on there to give my sports report, as well as all of us with the news, local news, campus news, community news, weather, all that sort of good stuff. You can tune into News at Noon right here on WCVF at noon. Also today, the Brown Bag Lunch Series is happening on campus. You can hear from SUNY Fredonia's new Chief of Police, Gordon T. Carpenter Jr. Please come by for his remarks and free food and beverages, because who doesn't love free food? We're all college kids here. The event will be hosted on October 4th, which is today, from noon to 1 p.m. in the Williams Center, room S204. So definitely make sure to stop by and get a chance to have some free food, obviously, and get a chance to meet our new university police chief. Also, as I was at break, the sports breaking news just keeps coming. Usually they wait until I'm off the air to break all the major news. That's happened more times than I can count. And the Patriots are in headlines again. I had said that they had traded for J.C. Jackson. And, well, I suppose we just found out the reason for that, because it was just reported by NFL insider Ian Rappaport that Patriots rookie cornerback Christian Gonzalez is likely to miss the rest of the 2023 season with a torn labrum in his shoulder. Gonzalez's injury adds yet another to just a staggeringly long list of headline players who are down for the season. Unfortunately, one of those being Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White, who tore his Achilles tendon in Sunday's win over the Miami Dolphins. Well, before we get to the Bills and Dolphins, I want to bring back my This Day in Buffalo Sports History feature, because I thought it was really cool. I loved doing that last year, and I want to bring it back. And coincidentally enough, This Day in Buffalo Sports History today features the Bills beating the Miami Dolphins. So a little bit of backstory for this. in the 1998 season, when there was the whole Doug Flutie, Rob Johnson starting quarterback controversy, the Bills in the wild card round lost to the Dolphins down in Miami. Flutie played that game. The Dolphins were kind of all over him, all that sort of stuff. So they played in 1999 on Monday Night Football down in Miami on October 4th, 1999, so 24 years ago tonight. And the Bills ended up coming away with a 23-18 win. It was a revenge game. They handed the Dolphins their first loss of the year after meeting in the playoffs the year before. So kind of the parallels to today. Doug Flutie beating Dan Marino in that game. Of course, the Bills would end up going 11-5 that year, and then ultimately losing to the Tennessee Titans in the wild card round when they decided to start Rob Johnson. Check that when Ralph Wilson made him start Rob Johnson. And the Bills, of course, didn't make the playoffs for 17 years after that. But that's a discussion for another time, really. What I want to talk about is the Bills-Dolphins game on Sunday. So before this season, I had never gone to a regular season Bills game, ever in my life. What am I talking about? I had only gone to one. So I went to see them play the Colts back in November of 2021. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving. And for any Bills fans who might remember that game, it was cold and raining, and the Colts literally ran over the Bills. Jonathan Taylor ran for over 200 yards. I think he found the end zone 3 or 4 different times. And the Bills lost to the Colts 41-15. So I had plans to go to a couple games this year, but the Saturday before the home opener against the Raiders, my friend who has seen, and I talked about this actually, Parker, who's my assistant here at the radio station, he had called me. He was like, "Hey, if I can get tickets to the home opener, would you want to go?" And I'm like, "Of course I would want to go. What kind of question is that?" So we went to the opener against the Raiders. We were originally planning the whole season to go Sunday against the Dolphins. That was the game that we had circled on our calendar since like May. And so we go up at around, maybe it was around like 9:30, 9:45 Sunday morning. We get up and go. And we parked at, on a front lawn, as a lot of people do. And we ended up having our little tailgate. We had a little bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a fiasco or what I would call it with tailgate grilling, but so we went to the store on Saturday night, and we're like, all right, we're going to make some hot dogs because I have a lot of hot dogs in my freezer. That's really another story. When we had Rock in the comments here, we had a lot of hot dogs left over, and I thought it would be a good idea to take like over 100 home with me. And I actually have a counter on my phone. I have how many are gone. I started with 114, and we're down to 101 right now. So we are definitely making progress on those hot dogs in my freezer. But I took them up to the Bills game, and we were like, all right, so we got to figure out how to cook them, whatever. We didn't have like a portable charcoal grill. So we went to Walmart, and we're looking in the grill section, and we're like, we can get a disposable one, like a one-time use, like tinfoil type one for only $10. Let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend. It worked out all right, but it was kind of a hassle to get everything coordinated. We'd never used it before, all that sort of stuff. But we made hot dogs. They did actually taste really good, not going to lie. But they turned out pretty well. I had my box of Josh Allen cereal, and I had my Bills Tostitos and all that sort of stuff. So then we walk to the stadium, and it's a long walk to the stadium, but we get there. There are so many people. I mean, I like it was unbelievable. As we're walking through the concourse, we're getting handed like free stuff by people in tents, right? And there was one that we got like a magnetic schedule. And there was one tent. I don't know if anybody's seen the Buffalo Pepsi commercials with Josh Allen, but there is a new trend. Okay. There's a new trend that Josh Allen started that he had Pepsi, and he poured wing sauce into it, like chicken wing sauce. Like not chicken wing dip, but like the wing sauce. And he took a drink of it. And that is now called Buffalo Pepsi. That is now a thing. I am not kidding. They were handing out free samples of that at the game. I am 100% serious when I say that. They had a Pepsi tent, and they were handing out free samples of Buffalo Pepsi, as well as towels, like rally towels that say, like, "We Believe," with the Pepsi logo and the Bills logo. And so we tried Buffalo Pepsi. I'm not going to lie. It's actually good. I thought it was going to be terrible. You think wing sauce mixed with Pepsi? It's actually really good. I would definitely recommend. I told a couple people that before one of the next games, we got to make it as part of a tailgate or something like that. But yeah, no, it was really good. So we go in. There's some Dolphins fans here and there. We were sitting right down on, like if you're watching on your TV, it was on the left side, in that left end zone. We were 7 rows up from the field, between about the 5 and 10 yard line, a little bit closer to the 5. And so like a couple, like Stephon Diggs' third touchdown happened right in front of us. Latavius Murray had one run where he went out of bounds literally right in front of us. And I'm not kidding. I looked around, like I think it was after like the first drive of the game. I think it was when we were singing the shout song for the first time after Buffalo scored their first touchdown. I was looking after Allen hit Davis. That was in our end zone on the opposite side. I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm actually struggling to find any empty seat in the stadium. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Like I'm dead serious. I'm completely serious. There were no empty seats in that stadium. It was packed. I mean, it was an unbelievable atmosphere. It was so loud. Whenever they would get to, Miami has a third down or a first down to start the drive, whatever, they play the train horn. Everyone is going insane. We're all banging on the chairs. My hands are bright red from banging on the seat in front of me. And it was so loud, especially when Buffalo had a couple of takeaways. When Josh Allen threw the touchdown to Gabe Davis, that was incredibly loud. Diggs' touchdown, because Stephon Diggs had 3 touchdowns. When Diggs, escaped away from that one tackle or whatever, or 2 tacklers, I think it was, when he escaped away from that place, I'm not kidding, that place went insane. It was unreal. That's the loudest I've ever heard a sports stadium. It was unreal. It was so loud that you couldn't hear when the referee would make a call or say something over the mic that's supposed to be heard throughout the stadium. You couldn't hear it because the fans were so loud. I mean, Sean McDermott said that it sounded like jet engines. It was unreal. And of course, it helps that the Bills won 48-20. The Bills and Dolphins have a very heated rivalry, of course. But it was, oh my gosh, it was awesome to see. And I think my favorite part about it, and I don't know if this is the same in other cities, it's just always been the way it's been in Buffalo. That, Buffalo scores a touchdown, whatever, and everyone is, high-fiving, fist-bumping, all this sort of stuff. I mean, you're going around high-fiving 10 different people that you've never met before. And that's Buffalo. It's what we do. Because the Bills bond all of us together. And I think that's just so special. So I'll get to the actual game recap. Buffalo got the ball first and came down the field. Josh Allen hit Gabe Davis for an 18-yard touchdown. Buffalo's up 7-0. Then the Dolphins drove down the field, and it looked like it was going to be a shootout early. Devon Achane, who's been an unbelievable rookie back for the Dolphins, runs it in from 3 yards out, 6.5 to go first quarter. It's 7-7. Then the Bills drive down the field, 10 plays, 80 yards, capped off by a James Cook 1-yard touchdown run that happened in our end zone. They reviewed it forever. We thought for sure they were going to overturn it, and then the kicking team ran out on the field to kick the extra point, and that building erupted. So the Dolphins came out, first drive of the second quarter, 7 plays, 70 yards. Devon Achane runs it in from 10 yards out. And at this point, it's a couple minutes gone in the second quarter, and it's 14-14. We're thinking it's going to be a shootout. Bills drive down the field, 5 plays, 79 yards, aided by, I believe, the pass interference. That ended up being like a 40-yard penalty. Josh Allen scrambled around and found Stephon Diggs for an 11-yard touchdown, 21-14 Buffalo. Then the Bills force a punt. That's all they needed to do, was just force one punt in this game. And then it was when Allen hit Diggs, there was a penalty for pass interference on Kohu, the Dolphins' defensive back. Diggs shook away from 3 tacklers and then sprinted into the end zone. That place sounded like it was going to fall apart at the seams when he did that. It was unreal. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah, then the Bills got the ball back. They drove down. They didn't really go anywhere because this was after – was this after a fumble? This was after, I think, Achan's fumble. Tyler Bass hit a 53-yard field goal near the end of the half. 31-14 Buffalo at the end of the half. The Bills had scored 17 unanswered points to close out the first half, and we're like, oh, the route's on. The route is on. The Dolphins came down the field on the first drive of the second half. Tua hit Braxton Berrios for a touchdown. That was Tua's only touchdown pass of the day. They ended up going for 2. It was incomplete as Tua tried to hit Tyreek Hill on a near side fade, and Dane Jackson knocked the ball out of his hands. So then the score remained 31-20. The Bills drive down the field. Tyler Bass kicks a 33-yard field goal to make it 34-20. Then with 3 minutes left in the third quarter, Allen to Stephon Diggs to complete the hat trick. That was right down in front of us as well. 13-yard touchdown, 41-20. Then 5 seconds into the fourth quarter, after Micah Hyde's interception, Josh Allen runs it in from 11 yards out, 48-20. Bills win. Of course, the not so good aspect of it, unfortunately, was the injury to Tre'Davious White. We didn't even see that happen. He just kind of went down, and we didn't really get a good enough view of exactly what happened, but it was a non-contact injury. He was playing in coverage, and he limped and then went down and then threw his helmet. We couldn't see that. That was on the other end of the field as us. But all of a sudden, the team starts converging, and we're like, oh, what's going on? And then they bring the card out. So we're like, okay, who's hurt? What's going on? And my mom, who's watching the game at home, texted me and told me that it's Trey White, and they're thinking that it's non-contact. And it's just like, come on, really? Like, this is the third season in a row where the Bills have lost a key defender to a season-ending injury. Third in a row. The last game that the Bills played with all of their all-pro defenders healthy was November of 2021. Coincidentally enough, it was the Colts game I was at where they got destroyed. But, rest up Trey, and hopefully he'll be okay moving forward into next season. It's so unfortunate and so hard for a guy who worked his way back after tearing his ACL on Thanksgiving 2 years ago to then go down with a season ender like this. It's so heartbreaking to see that happen to somebody, and it's just terrible, and we wish the best for Trey. But I think the Bills' cornerback depth is good enough to hold up. I really do. Listen, they're going to take a hit without Trey, no doubt, but I think they're going to be okay in the end. And plus, we're going to get Von Miller back either Sunday or when they play the Giants on Sunday night in 2 weeks, which is a game I will also be at. I just found that out today. I'll be going to that game, so that'll be fun. But, yeah, anyways, I'm going to take a quick break and then come back to wrap up the show talking about my NFL predictions for next week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Big Blue Sports Podcast here on WCVF 88.9, the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
Box of lemons and I told myself I'm losing again. Been a long time coming, I'm drowning and I'm feeling within. Look around here, you know you're not my friend. Long hard look and I told myself I'm losing again. And I showed her the way. Hey, what more could I say? to get away. Everybody now think they got the right way. I remember what you said to me. Everybody now think they live it wounded me. And I told her so. Hey, what more could I do? She was wrong. I'd chase around the storm. If I could just follow through. And she was wrong. I'd chase around the storm. If I could just follow through.
On the air at 88.9 WCVF. We are the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
And welcome back to the final part of Big Blue Sports Podcast here. I'm going to make my picks for the upcoming NFL games. So on Thursday night, tomorrow night, the Chicago Bears head at 0-4 heading into Washington to take on the Commanders. According to ESPN, 88% of voters going with the Commanders. And I have to agree. I think even though Washington kind of got burned by Buffalo a couple weeks ago, you know, Sam Howell's been playing solid. They've got a decent team in Chicago. Oh, man, the Bears are a mess. The Bears are just a mess. 9:30 Sunday morning, the Buffalo Bills at 3-1, taking on the 2-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. Would I come on here and pick against the Bills? Sometimes, but I'm not going to on Sunday morning. I think the Bills come out and get a win to go to 4-1. That game is on NFL Network, by the way. Now we get into the 1 o'clock games. The 2-2 Houston Texans going into Atlanta to take on the 2-2 Falcons. This is an interesting matchup because the Falcons started 2-0. 66% of voters going with the Texans. Texans rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud is playing lights out right now, while the Atlanta passing attack has a lot of questions. I think I'm going to agree with the plurality or the majority here, and I'm going to go with the Texans to win that game. The 0-4 Carolina Panthers looking for their first win as they head into Detroit to take on the 3-1 Lions. 98% of voters going with the Lions. I'm going to go with the Lions as well. I think that the Detroit team, they're good, and they're the favorites right now to win the NFC North. This is going to be a good one, an AFC South battle. The 2-2 Tennessee Titans going to Indianapolis to take on the 2-2 Colts. A slight majority, 52%, are going with the Titans. I'm going to go with the 48%. Regardless of whether or not Jonathan Taylor plays, I hope he does for my fantasy team. My fantasy team, which is 4-0, by the way, looking like they're going to go to 5-0. Figured I'd just mention that. But the Colts fantasy, the Colts team, Anthony Richardson has been playing really well. Zach Moss, former Bill's been excellent. They've played some close games. I think Indianapolis wins this game. The New York Giants at 1-3. Oh boy, are the Giants a mess so far this year. Heading into Miami to take on the 3-1 Dolphins. 98% of voters going with Miami. Yeah, I think the Dolphins bounce back from losing to Buffalo. Listen, that Miami team is good. I think the Dolphins will definitely bounce back and win that game. The 2-2 New Orleans Saints heading up to New England to take on the 1-3 Patriots. 68% of voters going with the Saints. I actually disagree with this. I think the Patriots are going to win that game. I think New England's defense is going to keep it close, and they're going to win it at the end. All right, I got to go speed round here. Baltimore, 3-1. In Pittsburgh, 2-2. 91% of voters going for the Ravens. I'm going to agree. I think the Ravens win that one. Matt Canada's offense is not very good in Pittsburgh. Now we get into the 4:05 games. There's two of them. The 4-0 Philadelphia Eagles heading to L.A. to take on the 2-2 Rams. 88% of voters going with the Eagles. I'm going to agree. I'll go with Philadelphia as well. Also at 4:05, the 1-3 Cincinnati Bengals heading into Arizona to take on the 1-3 Cardinals. If the Bengals lose this game, yikes. 65% of voters going with the Bengals. I gotta agree. I think Cincinnati's gonna win it. Now we get into a couple 4:25 games. There's two of them. The 1-3 New York Jets heading to Denver to take on the 1-3 Broncos. 68% of voters are going with the Jets. I don't know. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think Denver pulls it off. They win back-to-back. Why not? 425, the 3-1 Kansas City Chiefs heading into Minnesota to take on the 1-3 Vikings. 91% of voters going with the Chiefs. I think the Vikings can keep this game close, but ultimately I think Kansas City wins it. That's one that maybe I could see Minnesota winning, but I don't know. Sunday Night Football at 8:20, the 3-1 Dallas Cowboys heading into San Francisco to take on the 4-0 49ers. 83% of voters going with the 49ers. And that's not that Dallas isn't good. That's that San Francisco is unbelievable. I'm going to pick the Niners as well. Monday Night Football, the 2-2 Green Bay Packers heading into Vegas to take on the 1-3 Raiders. 75% of voters going with the Packers. Yeah, I got to agree. I definitely am going to agree with that. I think that the Packers go into Vegas, go into Allegiant Stadium, and beat the Raiders in that game. Well, that'll do it for another episode of Big Blue Sports Podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in here this morning, as well as everybody here at Fredonia Radio Systems who make this show possible. We will be back next week to hopefully recap a Bills win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, as well as talk about the Major League Baseball postseason, and of course, all things Fredonia sports. So thanks everybody for tuning in. As for Fredonia students, have an excellent fall break. Everybody else, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for tuning in on WCVF.
You're listening to 88.9 WCVF, the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
88.9 FM, the voice of Fredonia, WCVF.